Okay, this is an overview of our closing lathe in Blackhawk machine shop. It's a 15-inch swing, so that means that our chuck can swing a piece as much as 15 inches in diameter. Now if you look at the lathe, this is just a brief overview of its major controls. There'll be a couple videos following this. Next one will be for a setup on the lathe, and the one after that will be a demo run of the first part. So if you look at the lathe overall, a couple of the main features of it I'll identify right now. This device is our tailstock. This is our main control right here. Going in this direction, we call it our carriage. Going in this direction, we call it our cross slide. This device right here is called the compound rest. On top of the compound rest is a tool post, a cutting tool, and a tool holder. These are the main components for machining a finished part in the lathe. This is our chuck. It will have a key to lock and unlock pieces. This is our control right here for RPM and feed rate of the spindle. So looking at it a little closer, there's some other controls right here, but you don't have to worry about those right now for your first part. What you do need to worry about is how to turn it on, how to set an RPM, and how to begin machining your first part. So right now the lathe is completely off. There's a couple safety devices here. This is just a shield that can come down and protect you from the work when we're engaged with our cutting tool. This is a safety interlock right here. It will not allow the spindle to turn on without this being closed in this position. When it's in this position, the spindle will not be able to turn on. The red knob right here is our on and off, but you'll notice pushing down, nothing happens when I actuate the lever. So before we do anything else, we just want to take a look at some of the controls moving around. As you know, turning involves placing a piece in the chuck, spinning our lathe at a given RPM, using a cutting tool mounted in the tool post to machine finished diameters on parts. So you're going to need to do this setup every time you come in to use the lathe. There's about 7 to 10 projects in the introductory lathe course. So right now, again, just taking a look at the major parts. We have our tailstock over here. We have our main carriage assembly here, which this wheel advances our movement in this direction across the lathe. We'll call that the Z-axis. This handle right here actuates movement across. We'll call this the X-axis. This one you won't be using much at the early part of turning, but it is the cross slide, and we use that for some specialty tasks such as threading and facing and chamfering. Over here off to the side, I'm going to zoom in now and kind of show you where some of the controls that you're going to need to concern yourself with are right up front. So we're going to move over. I'm going to zoom in. First thing you'll notice is that there is no light here. This would indicate the speed that the spindle is turning. So what we want to do is to first of all turn on the machine. You don't see it right here, but in the back is an on-off switch. So you come around back here. You'll see it when you come around the back of the head on the other side of this device. But now you see that red light has lit up and there's a number here, 0. That means we are turning 0 RPM right now. So the essential task that you're going to be doing is you're going to be loading a part into the chuck. We're going to be having a tool in the tool holder. We're going to want to set an RPM and turn on our spindle eventually. This lever here selects speed ranges, sort of like a gear shift, if you will. We can select the middle or the highest speed if we want. Generally we'll work on the highest speed for our job at about 900 RPM. None of these other controls you need to worry about here. This is an emergency stop button. By simply pushing it in, it will stop whatever spindle is moving. So we want to make sure that that's out and the red light is on. The spindle won't turn on unless you bring this cover down and push the green button. And now we're ready to turn the spindle on. And you won't be able to see it. I'm going to turn it on, but it's the red knob just off the carriage. We'll zoom out in a minute and we'll show you that. But for right now, let me go over here. I'm pushing the handle down, and you'll see there's a number readout here, 515. That's showing your RPM. So what you want to do for your first job is you want to adjust this slowly. Never adjust the RPM without the spindle running. The spindle's on right now. We have our guard in place. So I want to bring it up to about 900, 1000 RPM for your first job. To turn it off, you simply take your red lever, push it up, and you're done. So now we'll zoom back out and take a look at the controls and setting the movement of your major parts. So we'll zoom out right here. So you have the tailstock in view, you have the carriage assembly in view, the main spindle. We've set our RPM. So right now the machine will not run with this part open. We'll just take a look at the carriage controls real quick, and I'll zoom in there. So here's our main carriage. You have the large knob, or the large hand wheel, moves your carriage back and forth along the Z-axis. This knob moves your carriage along the X-axis. This one you won't be using for your first couple jobs, but it will be moving along its own axis, what we call the tool post. Here's the red knob to turn on the spindle. You push it down, but notice nothing happened. That's because if you've seen in the previous frames, I've left the safety off, in other words, the interlock cover. So I'm going to put that back in place over here. This turns on your spindle. Notice it's still not on. I have the interlock down, but the last thing you have to do is push the green button on your control panel. Then you push it down, and you're going. Simply pulling it up turns it off. Flipping up your cover opens it up. Each of these wheels you'll actually see graduations. Each graduation on this wheel is 1/1000th of an inch. Each graduation on the wheel down here is 5/1000ths of an inch. These others, again, you don't need to worry about right now. The tailstock is a simple assembly that simply moves forward and backward. You'll do things like drilling from this tailstock, and we'll use it for a couple other things, steady rests and such. But for right now, that's the basic overview of the engine lathe. The next video will be setting up the lathe to cut a job. So we're turning off recording right now.